Running a bricklaying business is bloody hard work. But if you own a bricklaying business, one of the hardest things to know is how to quote your jobs so you're going to make a profit on them and you're not going to lose. It's something we're not usually taught at trade school. And I know when I was running my bricklaying business, I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars and had to learn the hard way. Today, I'm going to break down the 3 fundamental things I worked out running my bricklaying business to ensure that I knew exactly what it was going to cost me to do every job and I could price them accordingly. I'm Andy Shaw from Brickies Network, the Bricklayers Association Australia. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and watch our informational videos. It doesn't cost you anything. And if you stay to the end of this particular video, I'm going to give you some free calculators that you can use so you're really confident in knowing all of these things we're going to go through today. But let's break it down. So when you're running a bricklaying business, there's 3 things that you really need to know so you can quote confidently. You've got to know the average fixed costs of your bricklaying business. What's it costing you every day to run that business? You've got to know the labour cost of the business. Labour changes, we have different guys on different jobs, but we need to know exactly what the labour cost is for our overall business, but we need to know what the labour cost is for every job that we're on every day. And if we're splitting up crews and we're putting them on multiple jobs, that can be really hard to track. And we need to know the bricks laid in our bricklaying business and the bricks laid for each crew that we've got on site. So let's break them down one by one, and I've jotted down a few things here so you can see. So average fixed costs or expenses in your bricklaying business. Now we're going to average them over 42 weeks. Why do we average them over 42 weeks? Because let's face it, we don't work all year round. We don't work the 52 weeks of the year. There's holidays that we have, there's public holidays, there's sick days that we have, there's inclement weather. We're never on the job for the full 52 weeks of the year. But our fixed expenses, they keep coming in for the full 52 weeks of the year. So we've got to make sure that we know what they cost us for the full 52 weeks of the year, but average out how much we need to earn for every day that we're on site, so we know that we're covering them when we're quoting our jobs. And now, some of the fixed expenses, and this can vary from different businesses, they have different expenses. And this is why every bricklaying business needs to know exactly what it's costing them for the cost of their business. Now, I'm going to go over. So here's a few. Vehicle, utes, trucks, payments for the trucks. Even if you're not making a payment on a vehicle, vehicles wear out, you need to be putting money aside for the depreciation of the vehicle and the replacement. So there's always a vehicle cost, even if you own the vehicle. Insurances, tyres, rego, maintenance, repairs, they're all costs that keep coming on the vehicle. Trailers. A lot of businesses had trailers. I had 5 trailers in my business, so we had lots of rego, some tyres, maintenance on those things. It's amazing how many times you lose a wheel or it breaks down. Servicing it. We had fuel for all of those vehicles. I used to have an average expense that I had for vehicles, so we always made sure there was an allocation. Even though it varies a little bit, you got to have an allocation. Phone and internet. Oh, how many people forget that they've got a business expense? That's their phone and their internet. Their business doesn't run without it. Tools, replacement and maintenance. I don't know about you, but I used to really underestimate how much I would spend on losing tools, replacing them, and maintaining them. The bigger equipment, it did break down and you had to maintain it. I had tool insurance because my tools got knocked off once, and when I didn't have any equipment that got knocked off, my business didn't trade at all. I needed to replace it quickly. If it didn't come straight out of the equity in my business and the cash flow out in my business, well then I had an insurance policy that it didn't cost me financially for losing those tools. And you've got to replace them quickly so you can get back on the job. Office, yard space and storage. A lot of people don't allocate for this. They just don't think, oh, actually, my business is taking up space at my home. I'm spending money to store equipment. You've got an office that you're using at your home, probably, or you're renting an office and you're storing gear. You've got to allow for it. Bookkeeping and administration. A lot of people just don't allocate for this and don't allow for it. When you're starting out your business, you just do all of this bookkeeping yourself, or you pay the accountant to do it, which is even worse. You've got to allocate funds to pay for that outside work. Even though you're not laying bricks on the job, those things need to be paid for. And sometimes they're full-time staff, or they're staff that you pay on a part-time basis. So you've got to allow for them. Administration, who sends out all your quotes? Who does that? Your accountant. Your accountant costs you huge amounts of money every year to do your tax. You need them. They're a business expense. So you've got to allow for it. There's other things as well, like legal, that we don't even think about. When your business gets bigger, you've got legal set up for that business. If you're a company, if you've got legal things going on, chasing money, things like that, that's all a business expense. Needs to be allowed for. Software. We use software to do our bookkeeping, like Xero. We might have an operational management system for our business that does our payroll and keeps our records on site. They're all subscriptions. You might have subscriptions to Brickies Network, the Bricklayers Association. You might have subscriptions to business newsletters, business magazines, all of those things you need to stay on top of the compliance in the back end. But last but not least is your wages. You own a bricklaying business. You don't own a job. You have a job for your bricklaying business. So your business has to pay you. You've got to put your wages in there. And that's not just drawing out a few dollars. That's you getting paid properly with superannuation and all of the allowances that every other worker's entitled to. You've got to know what they are, because they're all fixed operational expenses. And if you have full-time workers like apprentices or guys that are on full-time wages, well, they get holiday pay, they get sick pay. They're getting 52 weeks worth of wages, but they're only working the 44. So you've got to be allowing them as a fixed expense. But what did I say the next one was? The next one is labour costs. A lot of us employ our workers as casual workers, but we need to know what it's costing, and we need to know how to track it on every job, so you know the all-in cost per hour for each person on site. You need to know that, because you need to be able to calculate every day how much it's cost you in labour on that job, to know if you are exceeding your labour allocation that you've allowed for on that job. Because it's not just the hourly rate. It costs hourly rate for the person plus superannuation, work cover or workers' compensation. There's certain allowances. These three things here, they're all entitlements. They're on top of what the person gets paid per hour. So you need to make sure that you know what all of that is, all inclusive, for each person on site each day. But of course, not everyone on site is getting paid the same amount of money. Your bricklayers might be earning $45 or $50 an hour, but your labourers, they might be only earning $30 or $35 an hour. But on top of that, they have percentage increases for these particular things. So everyone's a little bit different. So you need to know what they are for each person on site per day, so you know where you're going labour allocation and cost-wise for that labour. But then this is the thing that a lot of guys don't realise that you need to be monitoring and tracking in your business. You've got to know how many bricks are being laid. The average bricks, blocks or units per bricklayer each day on each site. You need to know the average bricks laid for a crew on a particular site. You need to be monitoring that. The reason why you need to know that is you need to know if your labour allocation on that job is matching the productivity output for the scheduled amount of time for the job that you're going to be on. So if you're not knowing that, you don't know whether you've laid enough bricks each day to meet your scheduled target and match that up with the labour allocation and the fixed cost average per day that you've allowed in your schedule. Because if you don't know that, how can you estimate or quote the next job? Because every job has a different productivity output. Therefore, it links to a different cost on a job. So This is valuable information for you to be able to quote correctly into the future. So when you look at a plan and look at a job site, you can go, actually, I've got really good access here. I'm going to be doing it in summer, not winter, less holdups with weather. They're good units to lay. They're a good type of brick because every job has a different brick that we use that lay at different speeds. So you can actually give a confident price for those jobs when you're quoting them, because just bundling it all into 1 per 1,000 rate just doesn't work when you actually know what it's costing you to run your bricklaying business. So if we go back over those 3 things right at the start, which were average labour costs, average fixed costs, labour costs for your business, and how many bricks are laid. When you know those, you can be confident to run your bricklaying business profitably and successfully into the future. If you've enjoyed this, download our free running cost calculator off the Brickies Network website, or go to the resources tab and download the free labour cost calculator so you can know exactly what this is and this is here. This one here, hard to track. You've got to get the boys to write down their hours every day for you. That's hard to track unless you've got the right software. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.